order. This is a meeting regarding the request for voluntary annexation and zoning of approximately 311 acres owned by Arthur Henry Properties, LLC at the northeast corner of Highway 87 and I-70. This evening, we do have a court reporter here who will be taking down all of the dictation tonight, so we will have a public record of it. Our order of presentation this evening will start off with Darrell Tower, and he will introduce himself and tell you a little more about himself. And that will be followed by a presentation by Megan McGuire, our city planner and city attorney. Earl Tessendorf will have a few comments. Then the council will have a chance to ask questions and make comments as they wish at that time. So if you would hold your questions until that time, I'll make an announcement as to when that will be. After that, the public will then be asked if they have questions or comments that they would like to make. And at that time, anyone that's here will be able to make public comments. So with that, I will turn it over to Darrell Tower.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Not really.
Not really? How about that? Is that better?
They're probably, keep talking, they're probably adjusting it
Better?
back.
Better? Test? Test? That's getting good? I can hear it now, so we're getting okay now. I'm Darrell Tower. I've met with some of you numerous times in the past, and I think it's great that there's a wonderful group here tonight, representation from a lot of different areas. We've got people here from Hunters Ridge and Gracie Lane, the Imhoff development out west of town. Mrs. Schrader's here. She's interested because the property is very close to hers, and there's several other folks here that fall in that category as well. What we're here tonight to do is to show you that better? Yep. What we're here tonight is to give you some idea of what we would like to do. It's not etched in concrete yet. Largely because we're still working on engineering and cost analysis and some marketing research, et cetera, and we'll be coming back to the full board later in the year to present exactly the plan that we would like to move forward with. But as part of the annexation, we have to give you some representation of the zoning and what we'd like to do. So we're going to kind of run through a presentation. It'll be up on the TVs, and we'll get through this fairly quickly, I think. This is the current map of the city of Boonville. The gray area is the area that represents the current boundary of Boonville, including the land that was annexed in by vote last year, I think it was in April or May, to extend the border of the city out to an area adjacent to the yellow property. The yellow property is owned by Arthur Henry Properties. It represents a combination of the Hale Ridge Golf Course and the Sickman Farm, and stretches all the way from Highway 87 to Highway 98 and goes right out to the northeast corner of Highway 87 and Interstate 70. Roughly about 300 acres, and that yellow area is the area that we're requesting to have annexed into the city. There's a map of the border that just shows the property itself without the city map, so you can see that yellow boundary. There's Hunters Ridge up in the northeast corner. Village of Windsor is south on the other side of the interstate, and it runs for a fairly good distance along Highway 87. So that's a good idea of what the representation of the property looks like. A little bit of history. I first started coming down here a year and a half, 2 years ago, and to be honest, when I first came to Boonville, I'll say it, I was not very impressed on the surface. The more time I've spent here, the more I realize it's a hidden gem. And when I say that, I mean it in reference to what could happen here and what could be here. And once the land was annexed in, both the Hale Ridge Golf Course and the Sickman Farm, we would like to work with the city. That's Arthur Henry Properties, Ed Rapp and Joe Schuster. Ed and Joe are in the back somewhere. Where are you guys at? Stand up, let everybody see it. These two gentlemen grew up here. Ed's an executive with Caterpillar International. He traveled quite a bit around the world and is home based in Peoria, Illinois. Joe is an executive with Phillips Petroleum, lives in Kansas City. Many of you know these guys, went to school with these guys, been involved with these guys over the year. They are the current owners of the property, and they're very interested in working with the city to develop three things: residential dwelling. There's not a lot of high, mid-range, affordable housing in Boonville, and that's one of their goals, to be able to do that. Another goal is to provide additional recreational venues, and the recreational venues will consider a lot of aspects, potentially soccer, trails, hiking, golf, outdoor event center, etc. And we'll get into more of some of those things later. And then lastly, to develop that intersection at 87 and 70 so that there's a good commercial corner there. We'll be introducing you a little bit later to some gentlemen that have some contacts with some hotel companies. We'll talk a little bit about that, show you a little bit about what they would like to do. Current status. Demographic studies, when you look at Boonville, it's kind of interesting. Everybody knows there's been a lot of jobs lost in Boonville. Factories have left, companies have closed down, businesses have gone to Mexico. But one thing that hasn't changed is the population of Boonville. It's still almost exactly like it was before they closed and left town. Normally when you see a small community like this, and I'm not being critical, if you're a major employer, population declines. It has not happened in Boonville. So that was one of the first things that piqued my interest when I looked at it. Why not? So I started looking at some quality of life things and investigating what's different about Boonville, why didn't it decline? And when I looked at a road map and looked at road counts, east of Boonville on Highway 70 is about 34 to 35,000 cars a day going between Boonville and Columbia. West of Boonville, it drops to about 27,000. Right now, there's close to 7,000 vehicles a day going up and down I-70 between Boonville and Columbia. Not dead yet. It's starting to happen a little bit. So that piqued my interest a little bit. And then I started investigating the surrounding areas to Columbia. And one of the things I started noticing is that Boonville is the first place you can go west of Columbia where there's fire, water, police, sewer, good schools, recreational amenities. You're not going to see anywhere that has the YMCA and the pool complex and the hiking trails and some of the amenities that are here. There's 410 acres of parks in Boonville. For a community this size, that's huge. So it's a family lifestyle that's safe. And at the price point we're looking at, our goal is to attract mainly younger families, not necessarily babies, but children that'll come and take advantage, and they'll grow with their families and be here for a number of years. So we're really trying to get this to look like and act like and embrace the commuter population that would come out here from Columbia. Who else is doing that? You go north, you go to Moberly. There's not everything in Moberly. There's some things, but not as much as there is here. You go east, there's nothing. You go south toward Jeff City, there's Ashland down there, and it's pretty nice. They've got some issues with water pressure. They're going to have to build a water tower to keep growing, which is very expensive. And when you really look, Boonville makes sense from a development standpoint if you're going to commute to Columbia. There's already a high percentage of people commuting to Columbia, not just from Boonville, but from Fayette, Sedalia, Road 179 down the road here. And it just makes a lot of sense to take advantage of that traffic and supply the housing to attract people here. Introduce some of the rest of the players. We have here tonight a gentleman from Sky's Edge Development. Sky's Edge Development is a group in eastern Iowa that builds homes and hotels. They own some hotels. They've done some home construction development, quality stuff. And those two gentlemen are here, Mike Sandersfeld and Alan Lurch. They have entered into a letter of intent with Arthur Henry Properties to work together with the city to try to get a development to happen out there and provide some quality mixed-use housing. We'll talk a little bit about what mixed-use housing is in just a minute. Dennis Hazenbank is also here. Dennis? Dennis has worked for the last 15 years or so with the Scope Homes Division, the same. He's not part of the real estate sales side. He's part of the home construction side. He's been involved with probably building 900 to 1,200 homes over the last 15 years. And he's got a wealth of knowledge about pricing out a development, designing a development, and putting the pieces together to make that cost effective and attractive. Our goal is not to bring a bunch of folks in from out of town to do this work. The goal is as much as possible to hire local subcontractors, local workers, local people to do the work. Now, there may be some pieces, no choice, but to bring somebody else in. Same goal is for supplying materials. We've already talked to some subcontractors. We've already gotten prices from Mid-City Lumber for what it would take, given the plans that Dennis already has put together. And looks real favorable that we'll be able to do a vast majority of our business right here locally as we move forward. I'm going to divert just for a minute because we're in the presence of a little bit of notoriety this evening. This is a picture of a golf course, and I live on this golf course. And right in the middle of that golf course, you see a lake and a green. And I was sitting on my patio about 2 weeks ago, and all of a sudden I heard this giant ruckus, all kinds of noise being made. My wife looked at me and said, "What is that?" I saw it's just a bunch of guys getting drunk. So we closed the doors and went inside. True story. I found out a couple days later that Mike was playing golf with guys he went to elementary school with. He's known his whole life. One guy hit a ball up close to my house. Next guy hit one about 5 feet from the pin. Mike was next, hit a hole in one. The next guy behind Mike also hit a hole in one.
Oh my gosh.
The odds of that happening are like 1 in 17 million. They were on Golf Digest, Golf Channel on TV, ESPN, so it was broadcast in the last week or so all over the country. So Mike gets to tell people that story for the rest of his life. He's a little embarrassed about it, but I'll tell it for him. Recreational opportunity associated with this property, in addition to homes and commercial. To make this work, we've got to have people in Columbia excited about coming out here. They've got to want to be here. So you put together an amenity package which includes golf, perhaps soccer fields, perhaps event center, perhaps hiking trails, the lake, and you design it in such a way that when people come there and get home from work, they're happy that they've arrived and they're back home. If all we do is the same thing they're doing in Columbia, putting houses up slammed in right next to each other and trying to sell those, they'll probably stay in Columbia. So we've got to design something that's attractive and affordable, and that's one of the goals as we move forward. To that end, Arthur Henry property, we don't know the details yet. We're not making a hardcore commitment to an amount or a price or anything like that tonight, but Arthur Henry property has indicated they're willing to donate significant land to the city for building soccer complexes, recreational complex, and perhaps a 9-hole golf course. The details of that have not been finalized, but there have been discussions about that, and those discussions are ongoing. So they're interested in working with the city to get this done. And I'll just mention again, those are options. Nothing at this point is in concrete. The request. Arthur Henry Properties wants to annex the property, the 311 acres surrounded by the yellow map that I showed you earlier, into the City of Boonville. It's a voluntary annexation. People do have the right to voice their opinions, et cetera, to the City Council, but they're basically making the request, and at this point in time, there's not necessarily a vote required except by the council. They want the land zoned according to a plan that I'm going to show you in a moment, and we'll talk about what they're going to do with that zoning plan. And they want to work with the city to make sure the infrastructure of the development is appropriate for the recreational components and for the hotel on the commercial side. And the city's going to need to do a little bit to get there, because the sewer and water, et cetera, doesn't go all the way to the interstate right now. It goes most of the way. We're working on some of those things to see what that might cost and how we can get it done. This is the zoning map as we're proposing it today. Prior to this absolutely being put in concrete, we'll come back with a full plat plan that shows exactly where everything will go, and everybody will have a chance to comment on that again before it's approved by the city. The red area in the bottom right corner is commercial space. We're already talking to a hotel group. I'll show you a picture of that in a minute in terms of what they like to do. The orange space is what we call CP. That's to be determined later. It could be commercial, could be mixed-use residential. Really depends on who expresses an interest in that. That red area completes the area from Pierre Lane all the way to the interstate, and the orange area goes from Pierre Lane to just southeast of the dam that's currently on the property on Highway 87. The blue area, that'll be a mixed multifamily area where we may put some quadruplexes, some small apartment units, those kinds of things, to have a little more affordable, maybe some condos in there, and then a site plan that lays all that out. The green space is recreational space, and that's where we'll have to configure the potential golf, soccer, hiking trails, access to the lake, etc., and that'll all be in green. The orange area in the middle will probably be duplexes. We call those zero lot line. And the duplexes that these guys build can be as big on one half as much as 23, 24, 2,500 square feet. They're not little $80,000 duplexes. They're very nice and attractive, and we'll show you some pictures of that in a minute. The yellow area is single-family residential. It abuts Hunter's Ridge to the northeast and goes through with access to Highway 98. The additional orange area in the north area of the map is a cul-de-sac that will have some additional zero lot line or duplex units, and maybe that might be a little secure gated area. We don't know yet. We're still working on some things there. This can all change based on what we learn from engineering. For instance, if you look closely, you'll see some roads, excuse me, underneath the colors. That may all change based on the engineers coming back and saying, look, if you put a road here, you got a problem because there's granite underneath. Or if you move it here, it's going to cost you more to put in the sewer. So those studies are being done right now. This is a preliminary drawing. The zoning's very close to what we'd like to do, however, in terms of what's going to go in the space. This is a Hunter's Ridge golf course property that's not the Hunter's Ridge that's here. And the only reason I added this to the mix is right in the center of that is an event center that only has room for about 150 people. In the lower right corner is multifamily condos, and those could be triplexes, quadruplexes, etc. And we're proposing some of that kind of construction in the southeast corner of this land, just as it is southeast here. On the left side, you'll see some duplex units with that road that goes on the southern edge coming off the main road. And then the rest of that is single family. Pricing in here ranges from starting around $150. Some of these homes are over $300,000. And on the southern part of this area, we're not showing it, there are some homes that are $700,000 or $800,000. Probably we're not going to get those kind of homes in Boonville. And right now, that's not necessarily our goal. But there are going to be some awfully nice lots laying out on this property, and there's a potential we may have some folks that want to build some higher-end homes in terms of that kind of investment. This is a prototype of the hotel that Mike and Alan would like to build. They already are involved as owners of some Choice Hotel products. One of those is a Mainstay Suites. Choice has come out with a new product line where they have a sleep-in as half the hotel and a Mainstay Suites as the other half the hotel, and they share the lobby, the amenities such as the pool, the breakfast area, etc. And something similar to that is what we would like to see happen on the southeast corner next to the interstate. I'm going to show you this. It's showing you how you can really dress up an event center. This is a metal building that exists at a winery we're familiar with. And if you look at it real close, there's some really nice window effects. There's stone. There's a different colored roof. It's obviously a winery because you can see all the vineyards. The next photograph I'm going to show you is actually an oblique satellite image. And you can see there's a building out back. That Building out back with the oblique, it's got shadows, so you really can't see it very well. But those 3 holes in there are garage doors that are wood with glass. Very attractive. They also have that same configuration on the other side of this building, and there's patios all around that facility for outdoor cocktail parties, sitting and watching the sunset, having musicians come in and do guitars and that kind of thing. And this gets rented out pretty regularly as an event center. It could also be used as a facility that could support golf. So it's a relatively inexpensive way to build a building that would be very useful for Boonville to have an opportunity to have something like that. The large building would not be anywhere near that size. We're simply showing this as a possibility. That large building is actually a full-born winery. They produce the wines there. They also distill whiskey there, and all their distillery equipment is in that large building. We're just showing you this is what can be possibly done. Dennis is replicating this building right now for another client, so he's very familiar with the construction here and how they did this. Going to show you some homes now. If you'll notice, we're going to see a mix here. There's nothing carved in stone here. Just want to show you some of the kinds of things Dennis, Mike, and Alan do. Almost all the models they're doing today have 3-car garages. That's been a real trend. We think that's something that can attract people to come out here from Columbia. For a little bit more money, you can add a 3rd garage, and people really like that. You also will see fieldstone, siding, hardy board, all different kinds of materials mixed in with very nicely color coordination. Most of these homes on the main floor are between 1,400 and 1,700 square feet on the main floor, 3 and 4 bedroom configurations with 2 or 3 baths. And with the finished basement, you add another 800 to 900 square feet. So you're getting out of these homes somewhere in the 2,100 to 2,500 square feet range once you finish the basements. Don't necessarily have to finish the basement, but it's a very inexpensive upgrade to do it at the time it's being built. There's a little more blow up of that one. This is actually a duplex. When you first look at that, you don't realize it. The duplexes that these guys build have a lot of depth relief, so that when you're looking at it from the street, it's not just flat straight across. You go into the door and out to the window and out to the garage, so that when you look at it straight on, it doesn't just look like a big flat facade. And actually, that product line has sold like crazy for Dennis and Mike and Alan in other markets. And you can get a lot of square footage for a little bit less money. This is what Dennis calls his empty nester. This basic floor plan on the main floor is about 1,450 square feet. Nice deck out back, 3-car garage. Again, if you finish the basement, you pick up another 700-800 square feet. And it's designed for guys like me. Our kids are gone. We want a nice place. We don't want to mow a lot of grass. We want to live in a nice area where we can go walk and enjoy the ambiance of the neighborhood. All of these, you notice, have sidewalks, curb breaks, etc. Dennis threw this one in. It's an example of a 2-story. Dennis has about 200 homes in your arsenal, long range, if you really look back at them. These aren't necessarily the exact models. These are models that currently are selling pretty well. So he pulled several of them for me to show pictures of. Notice the color accents. It's not just about white windows anymore or white door frames. It's a very color coordinated look with different types of materials in the building and around the building. Another different look, some stone, pillars. This one's kind of interesting. It's a 1.5-story plan, and you pick up a bonus room over the garage. I personally like this one, the colors on this one, and I think this is one you took us in, isn't it, Dennis? When we were looking at these. This is something that's a little different. We thought we'd show you. And if this would sell in this marketplace, we don't know. We might do a little bit of this in the multi-family area on the southeast area or on 87 where the current maintenance facility is. These are not apartments. These are single-family homes, and the structure is stacked above the garage door. very cost-effective in certain markets for young professionals that want to have a house. They don't want to mow grass. They don't want to do anything except have a nice place to live and get in their car and go somewhere. In this case, it would be the commute into Columbia. And I think for now, that finishes me up. I'm sure if there's some questions that come up later, I'll be happy to answer them if I can, or we may direct some of them to the folks that are here. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Daryl. Megan?
I have 4 points that I'd like to bring up this evening. For those of you who haven't been on the council all that long, back in 2010, Arthur Henry Properties and a couple other organizations that they had as part of their group entered into a pre-annexation development agreement with the City of Boonville. And that pre-annexation development agreement stated that basically once the city got down to this tract of land, that Arthur Henry Properties would then voluntarily annex into this, into the City of Boonville, and it's exactly what they've done. The difference being back in 2010, they didn't own the Sickman property. So once they bought the Sickman property, then that folded into that process. So that's where we are in terms of the development along Highway 87 and the impetus for their annexation and zoning plan. The second thing I'd like to bring forward is you will notice on your petition for annexation that's part of your ordinance that that is signed by Edward Rapp as trustee for the Edward Rapp Trust. And so I have made sure that when you receive an annexation petition to the organization, you have to have a verified petition to make sure that we have the owners of the property who actually own the property signing the petition. So that I have done that, I have verified their corporate documents, and we have a proper and valid annexation petition signed accordingly. The third thing is, at the Planning and Zoning Commission, we had a very good discussion regarding the zoning map. We evaluated the suitability of the plan for the various zoning districts on the 311 acres. We also evaluated the compatibility to the surrounding areas within the area of the land being proposed to be annexed. Paid particular attention to the properties that are in immediate adjacency, the Martha Stewart property, which is currently in the city with our last annexation, and she is zoned an RA, and she will be butting up against an RA with the plan that is presented this evening. The Hunter's Ridge property, even though that property is obviously not in the city, those are large tract single-family homes, and they will be butting up against the single-family home residence district that has been proposed with this plan. We also spent some time evaluating stormwater, density of lots, and those kind of things at the Planning and Zoning Commission. The other properties that we looked at is there are 4 or 5 homes that are directly east of the commercial area down by the interstate. So we have a commercial and residential areas that are abutting each other on the proposed plan. So we will make sure that as that site plan gets developed, we meet or exceed those buffering and pay particular attention to the compatibility of that commercial area with the residential area beside. After a fairly lengthy discussion of those issues and review of that, the Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend the zoning plan that you have in front of you today. The other thing for the record is, behind the scenes, what the City Council doesn't see is all of the notifications that are required when you receive a petition for annexation and zoning. The City of Boonville, through Teresa's office, the City Clerk's office, notified 52 adjacent property owners, as well as interested parties, all the governmental groups and so forth, and published this in the newspaper for both the zoning and the annexation hearings. So it takes care of all the legal details.
Thank you very much. One correction, just for the record, it's Martha Schrader, not
What did I
Martha
say?
Stewart.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So it's Martha Stewart, that might be bigger than 2 holes in one. So
Thank you, Mayor.
it's Martha Schrader. Okay, Earl?
Okay. My role here tonight is when a community receives a petition for voluntary annexation, there are a number of factors that the council is supposed to consider in determining whether it is reasonable and necessary for the proper development of the city, is the language that's applied, and there are a number of factors, 12 in all, that have been developed over the years through court cases and some statutory items that the council is supposed to use to make that evaluation, and then subsequently would be available to defend their actions in the future. Some of these factors, given their varied history, are a little bit duplicative or interrelated, overrelated, and some of them apply more than others. But I'm going to touch on all of them here tonight to get that on the record. We do have a detailed presentation of it if anybody wants to have a full-fledged copy of it. So factor number one, does Boonville have a need for additional residential, commercial, and/or residential sites that's represented by this property? Obviously, the 311 acres that are involved with this proposal do create a lot of space for housing, commercial, or recreational, if that's the direction we choose to go. So it allows that option. So what do we have now? The community has about 4,950 acres within the city. We calculate that there's less than 700 that are sort of available for development, and I think you probably have to whittle that number down even more to say that it's realistic for development. All of you know that being a river city, there's a lot of topographical issues in the community, and there's simply a lot of area in town that's never going to be developed in at least the three drainage basins we have. So it's not to say that there's nothing, but there's not much to pick from in terms of having in terms of the actual lots that are platted. There are no longer any what I would call new subdivisions in the community. Most of them have matured out all the way, if not most of the way. We calculate that there's about 60 lots scattered about the city that are available for residential uses. Obviously, we know that the last lot to sell is probably not the most attractive lot. So some of the quality is diminished. And another factor that's probably unappreciated is you'll find a lot of people who build on one lot, buy the lot next door to them to ensure privacy and control of what goes on in their property. And so some of the lots that look like they might be available are really not available. Further, I mentioned the part about access to major roadways. There is some land here, but it would require significant investment and to get highway access or roadway access to them. So that's probably not going to be justified financially. In addition, our commercial and industrial entities or efforts always seem to come back to access to the major highways or the interstate. And given what we have now, that has pretty much matured out, and is not much available that's very close to those areas. In addition, those properties are also driven by the availability of sewer, and so that's another issue to consider in that context. Obviously, any effort for recreational endeavors other than just a simple trail that follows around does require a fairly large land area for active participation with sports fields or whatever, and with some decent topographical characteristics, and some convenient access to get lots of people in and out of them also. And I think there's realistically a dearth of that land available in the community. And it's useful to consider that one of the initiatives the city's undertaken and started over the past couple of years is to look at some additional recreational amenities for the community, and perhaps even in a more of an economic development context, with the passage of a sales tax that was a couple of years ago. The first priority within it, of course, is to work on some sanitary sewer issues, but those are maturing along quite nicely, and I think the opportunity will be for us to turn our attention to this other element. Again, the second item is unable to meet this need without annexing the area. This is one of the items that's kind of redundant, but the 87 is the only corridor that's left that's largely undeveloped, and thus is available, particularly out at the I-70 interchange for the development of commercial properties. It's also the closest one to Columbia, which is interesting in trying to take a thrust of sort of a residential bedroom community for folks that do work there. So I think it has the unique ability to serve some residential needs as well as being attractive in a commercial and industrial context. Is the need reasonably foreseeable versus being some sort of pie in the sky, visionary type quality to it? I think probably everybody's come to the realization over the last few years since post-recession 2008 and 9 that the world's changed, particularly changed a lot for small rural communities. And you're not just going to go out and find new industries to come to town, manufacturing that employ 100 or 200 people. It's there's still a few of those things that go on, but the competition is off the charts with it in terms of being able to successfully play in that. And when you do play there, you probably end up giving away almost all the benefits you might get from them anymore. Just as an example, our economic developer, Jim Gann, has represented both the Indico building and the Nordine building to some prospects. And just across the state of Missouri, there are 70 competitive buildings around the state with those buildings. And I frankly thought they were probably very marketable and somewhat of a prize, if you can characterize it that way, and that we had something to work with in spite of our losses, but I don't know that that's the case anymore either. So maybe a new thrust, a new way of looking at things is being thrust upon us, and that may be whether it's a tourism travel thing, it may be the taking advantage of the interstate, or doing some of the residential things that function and trying to capture on to some of the positive elements of Columbia, and maybe being able to find a niche in there where we play stronger in some of the weaker parts that they have in the daily police blotter that goes on in Columbia, I think. So I think there's those opportunities that are there, and I don't think that anyone could say that they're any kind of visionary things. The next item has to do with the past growth foreshadowing future necessity. Obviously, we haven't had much growth in the last 5, 7, 8 years. Before the recession hit, there was some nice growth in the percentage figures, both population-wise and otherwise. That's obviously slowed down. I think you have to remain optimistic and try to position yourself so that you could capture some growth as you go forward, and this would be very instrumental in accomplishing that. A fifth factor is spillover in the proposed area. Obviously, any developments out here will help any existing businesses we have in town in terms of creating some demand for them. Having an improved tax base from new residents that have good jobs already will also advance that cause. So it has the ability to both spill over for the businesses and to the adjoining land areas too. Quality kind of begets quality after a while. Next two items I'm going to kind of consider together. They're the benefits of the application of zoning ordinances and and building codes. Without zoning, the primary purpose of zoning is to ensure compatible uses among adjoining properties. I mean, the first thing that kills a development is if you have incompatible uses and nobody wants to make an investment next to it because they don't want to be there. And so the zoning, it helps accomplish that. The second item that zoning does is the development of infrastructure in a quality infrastructure that has adequate water pressure, adequate sewer service, good roads, good drainage, erosion controls, traffic flow, and I think our codes and so forth bring that to it. And I think without that being readily addressed, you probably impose an artificial ceiling on what you can accomplish, and the successes are potential successes, I think, are diminished significantly. Codes, likewise, building codes obviously are primarily for safety, and the codes and the building technology that's advanced over the recent years have come a long way in that respect. Sprinkler systems and so forth, the technology is, if you look over the history of just sort of fires in residential properties, those numbers are down dramatically over the last 50 years. And I think it's primarily because of building technology and the codes that go along with them. So between the two of them, I think they ensure some level of higher quality and avoid stubbing the toes along the way to having a whoops that sort of interrupts the progress that could have been achieved. Beneficial effect of extending city police protection in the area. Obviously, they're served by the Sheriff's Department now. Obviously, being the police department, a 24/7 operation with people on duty overnight does enhance that. I don't know that there's a crying need out there at the moment for that, since there's not much out there, but having that available in the future does make that possible, and maybe gives us an interesting leg up on some of the activities in Columbia. The beneficial effect of municipal health ordinances. This is primarily for sanitary sewer services. If you have any development of any size, you need some sort of a centralized wastewater collection and treatment system. If you just build a house or two out on a few lots, you can get away with something else, even though that's becoming more challenging too, I think. But if you have any kind of volume or size to your development, you have to have that. And the city is able to do that. We've spent a lot of money on it. We've continued to deal with the challenges of that with the increasing regulatory environment. But in this case, obviously, the sewer has already been extended out there to the general vicinity. And so I think that's a major positive to the situation. The ability to extend municipal services to a newly annexed area. The time to extend those services is before an area is built up, before it's developed. If you go back in where there's some infrastructure already there, you have utility conflicts, your quarters for utilities are used up, you have people living there, that's an inconvenience. The cost to redevelop poor quality infrastructure is significant. And the best way to do that is on the front end and not try to fix it on the back end. As we struggle with that every day in the city, just trying to do simple maintenance. The day you show up to try to replace a piece of concrete, somebody's got to get their mother out to go to the doctor, or they're having a garage sale or something. It's a continued challenge and retards the efficiency of everything. Obviously, the area is served by a state highway already, pretty good condition highway, and that ties into the interstate and comes on back into town. As I said, the sewer force main and some gravity flow is to where the old concrete plant was, so it's to the property already. And there's some water lines already out there through the public water district, which in our annexation plan we intend to try to work with jointly. We do need to do some enhancements, some upgrading of a section of the line, some of which is back within the city to provide the flows necessary to provide fire flows and hydrants and so forth. The public water district provides potable water for drinking. They don't provide fire flows for fighting fires. So. The next item, the enhancement of land value by reason of its adaptability to uses of the city. Again, with the infrastructure development, with the zoning and so forth, the goal there, and I think the realistic outcome is that you do elevate the highest and best use of the property to a much more achievable level, and then you maximize the benefits to it for the local people and the local economy. Improves the regularities of the Boonville boundaries. This annexation doesn't really do much in terms of that item, given that it is contiguous back up with the existing city limits, but the new parcel, you can see the shape of it. It's not as crazy as many of them would be. And in the last annexation, we did clean up some irregularities, but I don't know that that's a significant element of this one. So those are the dozen items that I've tried to highlight on justifying the favorable consideration of the annexation.
Okay, thank you, Earl. I'm going to open it up to council questions and comments at this time. I would like to point out one thing. On our agenda this evening under unfinished business, item A is second reading of bill number 2015, which has to do with this request. We will not be voting tonight on this. It's going to go to a third reading. The actual vote will be taking place July 6th. So typically that's the way we do when we have something of this magnitude, and we like to have a public hearing, get the input from the public, and then have the voting at the next meeting. So just for your information, that will only be a simple reading on that. There will be no voting after that. So open it up. Council questions or comments about what's been said this evening regarding the annexation and the zoning of this property?
I have a
Yes.
kind of question, but so we're building houses, and what are all these people who are going to live in these houses? What do they do for a living, and how does this really?
Well, I think Daryl can probably address that a little bit.
Over the last 2 years, I've done some pretty extensive market research, and one of the things that's been indicated, even during the recession, is that in the just Boone County, which is Columbia, MLS, approximately 1,700 to 1,800 homes a year currently turn over in a price range between $175,000 and $250,000. Now, a lot of those are existing houses. A lot of them are new houses. Approximately 650 new permits are getting pulled for residential houses over there, okay? So I asked a question several weeks ago of several folks that had seen some more detailed information on the marketing analysis that we had done. Said, what percentage of those homes do you think you can attract to move here? And what we're after is not the people who live at Old Hawthorne. We're not going to get the guy that's living in an $800,000 house. What can we get? We're going to get the nurse that's married to a policeman, the school teacher whose spouse maybe works at the university in one of their departments, whether it be engineering or maintenance or something like that. We're going to get some of the professors that aren't necessarily full PhDs that want a different lifestyle for their families and come out here. So what percentage of that 1,700 can we get? Pick a number in your head. The lowest number I was quoted, I think, was from Earl, and I think Earl said 4%. Now, that was before I told him there were 1,700. At 4%, okay, that's 68 homes a year. We're not going to do that. That won't happen. If it happens, I'll dance a jig. If our projections are based on 22 to 30 homes a year, all different prices. And the market segment is that $175,000 to $250,000 price point, because there's very little of that currently in Boonville, and that's what the commuters want. That's what they'll come do. And we've got all kinds of studies that indicate that works, and we've looked at it several different ways. If you go on a website called city-data.com and look up Boonville, it'll tell you the homes that have been built by quarter in the last 2 years. Very interesting what you see. Jerry Quinlan will confirm this. The first quarter of 2015, there was a huge spike in home sales in Boonville. Correct? Yes. A big spike. And that graph is on the City Data website. Where are they buying homes? I mean, the average age of a house in Boonville is 50 years old. Literally, that's the average age of a home. So we're attacking a market niche that's very competitive against Columbia. To hook up and build a new house in Columbia out of the chute and permits and fees cost between $12,000 and $15,000 just to break ground. Here, I think it's about $2,500 to $3,000. So we got about a $10,000 price difference just in permitting before we ever break ground. So our plan and goal is to attract people into the area to get quality housing in a great family-friendly community at a price point that's better than what they can get in Columbia. Now, can we pull that off? I think so. We've done a lot of research that indicates we can, but that's really where we're trying to go.
And I agree. I mean, I really do agree, but it just something asks in the back of my mind, well, you know, what are these people going to do? But we're hoping to pull from Columbia, and then I also ask, why hasn't this naturally occurred? I mean, why hasn't it occurred?
I think a big part of the reason it hasn't occurred, when you talk to contractors in Columbia, quite frankly, their first response to Boonville is, oh my gosh, we don't want to go out there. And it's a knee-jerk response. They don't understand that there's good city water, sewage, fire protection, police, YMCA, schools. Even though the schools don't rate high on Zillow, there's a reason. Zillow only looks at test scores. They don't look at student-teacher ratio. The water park, the trail system, the kids' activities for baseball, t-ball, soccer, little league, softball. All those things are here that in Columbia is just much harder to participate in. And a big one that we've heard consistently is crime. I've run the crime numbers on Boonville. I know your chief of police is here. You've had like one murder in the last 5 years. Yeah, one a week in Columbia. And a lot of them are drive-bys. And people don't want to live in the traffic pattern. I abhor going through 63 and I-70. I avoid that intersection at all possible costs because I know I'm going to get hung there for 30 minutes no matter what time of day it is. I literally went to the steps of Hawthorne, sat on the front of the country club, and some people here went with me. I went back and drove it later. It took me 25 minutes to get from the steps of Hawthorne's country club to the University Hospital. I came out here the next day to the same time of day. It took me 27 minutes getting off at Stadium. So the job here is to market the community, and the community has not been marketed in a way that is an extremely positive light. And everybody here lives here. Why do you live here? There's reasons. And a lot of the people that live here didn't grow up here. Look at the village of Windsor. 90% of those people commute to Columbia every day, and 90% of them did not grow up here. So there's a market. We just got to figure out a way to get people to hear it and understand it. And I firmly believe that. Fulton's growing, and Fulton's a 45-minute commute. You got to drive up the interstate, you go down to Jeff City and come up 63, or drive up the interstate and come down south on 63. There's no real clean road to come straight across. That's 2-lane and not very congested. The competition here is Ashland, and Ashland's got problems because they got to put in a giant water improvement to keep growing. And the county's requiring them to do that. So we've done a lot of research on this particular price point, whether or not it makes sense.
Kari, I think, has a question.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Daryl. Is the new housing, is it typically in Boonville you have existing housing? When I moved here, we built a custom house. So is the housing going to be set up like in other cities where it'll be a model home situation where you can go in and pick your lot, pick your elevation, and so on and so forth? How is that
Basically, yes, but as part of that process, there'll be all kinds of upgrade opportunities.
Right.
For instance, you may pick the empty nester, and if it's a couple that only needs 1,500 square feet, they don't want to finish the basement, they don't have to.
Right.
You can do any of the plans that are 3-car plans as a 2-car plan. Mm-hmm. You can add granite countertops, crown molding, and upgraded flooring as opposed to carpet. So the price point for the same models might be $25,000 or $30,000 different, depending on how you want to configure it and build
Well,
it.
we've never had anything like that in Boonville.
No.
ever. And I think that's one of the ways that's going to draw people, is that they can go in, because when you come into a new community, let's say you do want new construction, if you don't know anybody, you're going to be you're going to be, well, who do I contact? You know, how do I go about this? How do I know the builder's reputable? You know, that sort of thing. So if you go in with a model home situation where you can see all your choices, that's, I think, going to draw people.
And the marketing plan to the families needs to be a city plan to promote Boonville, not promote this development.
Right.
Why live in Boonville? You know, the festivals that are here, the parades that are here, the music thing that's done every year at the theater. I mean, that's fabulous. Very few communities of this size have what's in Boonville. I've traveled the world. I literally traveled the world. And I can't name another community this size that has the amenities that already exist in Boonville. It's very unique.
Any other questions from council or comments? No? Okay, at this time, we'll open it up for public comments. I do ask that if you're going to make a comment, that you come up to the microphone. We are on the World Wide Web, so when you talk, you're going to be speaking to the whole world. Keep that in mind. So if you would state your name for the record and sign in, there's a piece of paper there. So I will open it at this time for people who would like to make public comments.
I'm Jerry Quinlan, Ward 2 here in Boonville. I've been a resident for a number of years. I've put in several subdivisions, and I know that it takes a lot of time, money. This is something we need. I wish this could have took place 60 years ago, annexing from Highway 5 clear down to 87. Would have been great. It didn't happen. If you want the town to grow, we need this. We have 2 other intersections on Interstate 70. It's bringing in money. You look at Ashland, they're just drawing from Columbia. We have a better highway. Why haven't other people built? I don't know, but it costs a lot of money. I put in several subdivisions. You don't get rich on it. But I think this is something we need. And I sure hope the council is behind this. Arthur Henry Group has done a lot. They're trying to help Boonville. So please consider it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
I'm Russell Imhoff, owner and operator of Imhoff Hometown Appliance. I think this is a very good thing that Arthur Henry Properties is trying to do. This has probably been the biggest thing in Boonville for quite a while. As a business owner, yes, I'd like to see that. Maybe it'll help me out some more and some other businesses in this town too. We have to figure out, Columbia's taking our people, we got to figure out how to get some of our people back or bring people from Columbia to help this community out. More kids, more things at the Y, ball players, basketball players, everything. So I think this is a very good thing to do. Yeah, it's going to take some time, there's going to be a lot of headaches, but there's nothing easy. But this is a great thing. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Russell. Any other comments? For the annexation and the zoning. If you have public comments on anything else on the agenda, there'll be a time for that later. Last chance on the annexation? Well, I believe we will close the public hearing then, and thank you all for coming. We'll take a short break, a 5-minute break, and then we'll call the meeting to order. And anyone that would like to leave is certainly welcome to. But you're also welcome to stay. I should say it that way. Thank you.
Father, we thank you for this wonderful day. Please be with Gary Nauman and his family. Give them guidance and comfort in the loss of Carol. Amen.
Okay. Roll call.
Livingston.
Here.
Ayers. Here. Dorman.
Here.
Young.
Here.
Evans. Here. Meadows.
Here.
Peach.
Here.
Hurt.
Here.
Hearing of citizens' comments. At this time, if you have something you'd like to say, you have 5 minutes. We ask that you come to the podium and sign in. And Mrs. Raymer, I believe you have asked to go first, so if you would like to, or your daughter, okay? If you would please sign in.
I'm here on behalf of my mother, Jacqueline Raymer, and my sister-in-law, June Raymer, who actually owns the property that my mother lives in at 17923 Stewart Drive, right behind Lakeview. About 4 or 5 years ago, my father presented to this council requesting annexation of their property. He did a lot of the surveying and everything for this to happen. And when the time came for the vote, some members were not present that night. And my understanding from some other members that after the fact, or that there's a misunderstanding on the fact that it was my father who actually did not want the annexation, so they stopped the annexation right at their property line. And that indeed was not the case, obviously, as he was the one who brought it to the city council. We are in need of this to happen because of the sewer system situation in there on the property. And I was asked to come here and just present this to the city council. And I'm aware after the fact that we need to have a petition in line, and that will happen again. Everything was in order the first time around, and like I said, I don't know what happened other than what I've been told, but this will be forthcoming, and I hope to be hearing from you guys that we are on your next agenda, hopefully, because this is a very urgent situation that we get this done. We have the state involved, and so something has to happen
Okay.
sooner than later. So,
Thank you.
and I appreciate you listening.
Thank you. Anyone else have any public comments? Thank you for coming, Mrs. Raymer. I appreciate that.
Hello, how y'all doing?
Fine.
My name's Morgan Weaver, and I was just here on the derelict, dilapidated property deal. 120 days is coming around, and I cut into a couple sections. They were just a lot more rotted than I thought, so it doesn't look as pretty on the outside yet, but I've been spending my time doing structural stuff. And I should be finishing it up here within a month, month and a half, if that's okay.
What is your deadline?
I'm not 100% sure.
Monday.
Is it Monday?
This coming Monday?
And I also just need to apologize if my father Ken has been calling any of y'all. Because I know he can be quite the
Can I ask him a
chore.
question?
We typically don't do that, but we'll make an exception this
Okay,
time.
I'm not really clear on what you're asking us to do.
Oh, I just
I'm
needed
sorry.
another month on that 120 days, go ahead and finish out the exterior parts to bring it up.
So
what y'all
he's
need.
asking for a 30-day extension, is that what it is, Steve?
Or I don't know what size chunks y'all dole them out in, or please stand there. But that's what I was thinking, 30 to 40 days at most is what I was looking at to be completely done with everything on the exterior. But, yeah.
I think for extension, am I correct that that usually comes to you and Steve make some?
No. council set the
Sorry.
time.
Okay.
And on this, supposed to be getting the title of the house and everything sold over to me. Kind of have a snag dealing with Ken because of his alcoholic dementia. So hopefully I'll be getting it transferred over and y'all won't have to deal with him or anything anymore as far as that goes. But that's kind of what the plan was. And I didn't know exactly when the cutoff day was because I didn't ever get a letter from anybody. They all go through him, and there's no filing system in his mail or anything like that. So
Here again, we typically don't make decisions under public comments, so we can see if under miscellaneous, we might provide some direction for you.
well, that'll work. I'll just roll them through because I wasn't sure when the time was up.
Okay.
Thank you much.
So you need to hang around
Yeah.
for a little later in the meeting and they'll address it.
Will do. Or do you have to talk to
No,
Well,
we're
because
going
you
to
don't-
try to discuss it here tonight in about 20
please
minutes.
stand down?
Okay. Any other public comments? Seeing none, we'll move along to approval of the minutes of the June 1st council meeting. They were in your packet. Had the weekend to look them over. Are there any additions or corrections? Seeing or hearing none, they will stand approved as presented. Consent items, we have none this evening. Presentation of accounts and claims. Teresa, when you're ready.
Ordinance appropriating money. Be it ordained by the council of the city of Boonville as follows. Section 1, for the purpose of paying salaries and various accounts against the city of Boonville, which have been allowed by the council at the regular meeting thereof on June 15th, 2015, the sum of $409,835.05. General fund, $207,057.32. Sanitation, $20,216.21. CIP tax, $9,198.29. Waterworks, $88,256,000.05. Capital projects, $2,150.41. Wastewater, $38,925.24. Tourism, $22,760.12. Gaming, $21,271.41. Parks and Water, $0.00. Section 2, the bookkeeper is hereby authorized and instructed to draw checks on the respective city bank accounts in favor of persons whose salaries and accounts have been allowed as above, amounting to $409,835.05, being the total amount of money above appropriated. Section 3, this ordinance shall take effect and be enforced from and after its passage. First reading on June 15th, 2015, read for the second time this 15th day of June 2015, since a copy was made available prior to the meeting.
Second reading, title only.
Ordinance appropriating money.
Mark,
Mayor, I move we approve this ordinance.
do I hear a second? Second. Questions or comments? Roll call.
Livingston,
Yes.
Ayers,
Yes.
Dorman,
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Meadows.
Yes.
Beach,
Yes.
Hurt.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Unfinished business. Second reading of bill number 2015-016, requesting voluntary annexation and zoning of approximately 311 acres owned by Arthur Henry Properties, LLC, at the northeast corner of Highway 87 and I-70. And as I said earlier, this is a second reading, and we will be having a third reading on July 6th and final reading.
An ordinance of the City of Boonville, Missouri, annexing certain contiguous territory at the northeast corner of Highway 87 and Interstate 70, commonly known as Hale Ridge Golf Course, and Arthur Henry Properties, LLC, into the City of Boonville, Missouri, providing an effective date, therefore, and repealing all ordinances in conflict with this ordinance.
Thank you very much. Item B, second reading of bill number 2015-017, reducing the speed limit on Jefferson Road from 11th Street east to the intersection of Missouri Highway 98.
An ordinance of the City of Boonville, Missouri, reducing the speed limit on Jefferson Road from 11th Street east to the intersection of Missouri Highway 98 from 30 miles an hour to 25 miles an hour, providing an effective date thereof, and repealing all ordinances in conflict with this ordinance.
Do I hear a motion? Mark,
Mayor, I move we approve this ordinance.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kari. I believe, Ned, you had asked for documentation on who had signed the petition, and I believe that information was provided and also the minutes from the meeting where that was discussed. So, discussion.
I just have a brief question. The petition indicates that they were asking for the speed limit to be 20 miles an hour. Is there a reason why it was 25?
ML?
Not specifically. There was discussion between the Street and Alley Board and a representative from the petitioners, and 25s where they kind of came down on.
Okay. Ned?
Thank you. Two things. First thing is, I think it's always good when we react to public outcry. And I think in this case, the committee, Street, Alley, and Sanitation Board reacted. I'm against doing this, simply because I travel that street a lot. The kids love to go the back way, coming from their house and going to school and what have you. And there is, when school's in, there's a considerable amount of kids walking on the highway. And typically, the kids are walking with the traffic instead of facing the traffic, ML, which, as you and I both know, when we were Boy Scouts, we were taught to face the traffic because you can get out of the way. The thing that convinces me that this doesn't need to be done is Bobby's study. I mean, he's not found that there's that much speeding on there. 11th Street is 30, and probably more dangerous to walk on than Jefferson Drive or Jefferson Road. So I'm not sure that we really dug this deeply enough. I'm wondering if this isn't an issue with trying to teach the kids. It's the kids that do the walking with the traffic, ML, as opposed to the adults. But I'm wondering whether or not it's something that needs just a little bit of teaching. It's simply because both pieces of information tell me that this is probably not all that necessary.
Other comments or questions?
Is 25 going to make them happy? I mean, it's only 5 miles different, you know.
Well, and you can see in the minutes, there was extensive discussion between Street and Alley Board members and a representative from the petitioners, a resident along the street. And this is where it came down at 25 as opposed to 20. There were some thoughts that 20 was too slow, and obviously some thoughts that 30 was too fast. So, and that kind of goes back to what Ned mentioned on reacting. You've got a room full of people discussing a problem and a perceived problem, and then solutions to a problem, and so here we are.
Well, I was at that meeting, and there was also concern from the residents, and I agree with it being lowered. In fact, I was in favor of it being lowered to 20. I mean, Main Street's 20 miles an hour, for God's sake, and there's kids and families present. But I defer to whatever ML thought was best. But they also have trouble with those trucks from Cooper's going up and down that street, so that was another issue. So my thought was, if those trucks are going to be traveling there, and it is residential, I mean, why do they need to go 30 miles an hour? That's just, to me, common sense. So that was my impression that night.
Becky?
A concern I have for Jefferson too, when I'm traveling on it, is it does not appear to be as wide as like 11th Street. 11th Street is a straight shot. You've got vision of what's coming at you. Jefferson is up and down, and it's rough, and there's nowhere to go. There's a ditch, but there's nowhere to go. So.
Okay. Henry?
Mayor, I think we have to be like New Franklin, make some examples of folks, give out some tickets, and it will stop. When I go through New Franklin, I slow down, because I know what they do over there, you know. So I think that, and I see cars going up and down 11th Street, and they're doing a lot more than 20, 30 miles an hour. A lot of trucks, mainly. A lot of trash trucks and
Yeah.
dump trucks.
Any other comments before we vote? Roll call.
Livingston,
Yes.
Ayers,
Yes.
Dorman,
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Meadows,
Yes.
Beach,
No.
Hurt,
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. The ordinance goes into effect. New business, item A, consider approval of recommendations of local agency funding committee. That was in your packet, and first of all, I'd like to thank the members of the local agency funding committee. Morris Carter chaired that. LaDonna Drew, Albert Turner, and Nancy Whalen served on that, and Ned Beach was the council rep on that. They are listed in there, and Morris is here if you had any questions. If not, I would entertain a motion to accept their, yes.
I move that the city council accept the recommendations of the local agency funding committee.
Do I hear a second?
I'll
Henry?
second it.
Thank you, Henry. Comments, questions? Roll call.
Livingston,
Yes.
Ayers,
Yes.
Dorman,
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Meadows,
Yes.
Beach,
Yes.
Hurt,
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Morris Carter, Chairman. Would you please stand up, Morris? Look at Morris. Look how dressed up he is.
Thank Teresa. She did an outstanding
Yes.
job. She helped us in many, many ways. She dug up information we asked for, but it was the best committee I've sat in on for a long time.
Very good. Well, thank you so much. You'll probably get the job again next year. Campaign.
The committee wants to be back.
Oh, okay, well, that's good. Okay.
Yeah.
Have we voted on that?
yes.
Okay, and that passed. Item B, consider resolution R 2015-08 approving an agreement with Wish and Vaughn Construction, Inc. and Home Heating and Air Conditioning Company, Inc. for Gingrich warehouse upgrades.
A resolution of the City of Boonville, Missouri authorizing and approving an agreement between Wish and Bond Construction Incorporated and Home Heating and Air Conditioning Company Incorporated and the City of Boonville, Missouri, both pertaining to Gingrich warehouse upgrades and providing an effective date therefor. Whereas the City of Boonville has solicited and received bids for this project and determined that Wish and Bond Construction Incorporated and Home Heating and Air Conditioning Company Incorporated represents the best bid pursuant to the purchasing code set forth in Section 2-20 of the City of Boonville Code of Ordinances. Therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Boonville, Missouri as follows. Section 1, that a certain agreement between Wish and Vaughn Construction Incorporated for Work Package 3A and Home Heating and Air Conditioning Company Incorporated for Work Package 15A and the City of Boonville, Missouri relating to the Gingrich warehouse upgrades, a copy of which is marked Exhibit A, is attached hereto and made a part hereof, is hereby approved. Section 2, that the city administrator and the city clerk are hereby authorized to execute and attest said agreement on behalf of the City of Boonville. Section 3, this resolution shall take effect and be in full force from and after its passage and approval.
Do I have a motion to approve? Mark?
Mayor, I move we approve this resolution.
Okay, do we have a second? Becky?
Second.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
Just one question. Holy smokes. I mean, that difference on the bid is just scary. Wow.
100,000.
I mean, honestly, that's, and they say, I'm glad you put that comment in there that they're comfortable with the bid.
Yeah.
But, oh my God, what a difference. I mean, we obviously are gonna take it, but, whew, that's scary. Yeah.
If you think back we've made similar comments on recent bids over
Yes.
the last 6 months, so I'm not sure this wide spreads aren't more the norm than being abnormal.
Been seeing it.
And Wish and Vaughn built the salt building for us out at the city services building. We built
Right.
6 or 8 years ago. That's probably among the better bids I ever did, because it was right during the recession and there wasn't much work going on. And at the time, we couldn't figure out how they were even paying for the concrete, let alone the other stuff to it. And that was an adequate job. And they've been around for a while. If I recall, I used them in Sedalia on some sewer collection system work. And so they've been in business a long time. And frankly, the job's not that complex. There's some windows, basically a deck patio type thing, a little concrete swale work perhaps, and about it. And breaking a hole in the brick to put a new door in. And there's some HVAC, but it's a different bid, so I don't know what the deal has been. And it's consistent with, I think the Septicon's estimate was like 176 or something for the 2. So, and our last bids have been high, so it's nice to come in low.
Get a low one,
We need
yes.
that to get back in sync a little bit. So. And they have a bid bond, so.
There we go.
Any other questions? Roll call.
Livingston,
Yes.
Ayers,
Yes.
Dorman,
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Meadows,
Yes.
Beach,
Yes.
Hurt,
Yes.
Item C, consider Resolution R 2015-09, approving an agreement with Vance Brothers, Inc. for asphalt pavement seals 2015.
a resolution of the City of Boonville, Missouri, authorizing and approving an agreement between Vance Brothers Incorporated and the City of Boonville, Missouri pertaining to asphalt pavement seals 2015 and providing an effective date therefore. Whereas the City of Boonville has solicited and received bids for this project and determined that Vance Brothers Incorporated represents the best bid pursuant to the purchasing code set forth in Section 2-20 of the City of Boonville Code of Ordinances. Therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Boonville, Missouri as follows. Section 1, that a certain agreement between Vance Brothers Incorporated and the City of Boonville, Missouri relating to the asphalt pavement seals 2015, a copy of which is marked Exhibit A, is attached hereto and made a part hereof is hereby approved. Section 2, that the city administrator and the city clerk are hereby authorized to execute and attest that agreement on behalf of the City of Boonville. Section 3, this resolution shall take effect and be in full force from and after its passage and approval.
Looking for a motion? Mark,
Mayor, I move we approve this resolution.
second.
Second.
Kari?
I want to make a couple of comments on this. Direct your attention to page 28. Look at line number 5, onyx seal. We went up to a seminar in Kansas City back in early March on pavement maintenance techniques and so forth, and this was one of the newer products. I've never used it. We never used it here in Boonville. But we thought it had some application on a specific section of our maintenance effort, namely streets that are in pretty darn good shape to begin with, that may have oxidized or have some coarseness in the paving. We were doing it around 4th Street over by the church that we overlaid a couple of years ago. Some sections of Highland Drive have a similar thing, and Crescent, which was built a long time ago, remains in excellent condition, virtually no cracking at all, but it's oxidized. It's turned kind of gray instead of black. So we were looking for something that just added a little top seal to it that kicked out the maintenance curve 5 years or so. And the price you see in the second column there on MECO estimate was $1.55. You see it's about half the cost of other stuff because it's not as a significant a product. But somehow the bid came in higher than that, so we were misinformed or misunderstood, or the product is not what we thought it was. So we're going to revisit that. Scott already had a discussion with them last week and come up with an alternative. I'm not going to do the onyx seal for $350. We're going to try to find a substitute for it that brings the number back down and does what I want to do. The onyx seal, as we now understand, it's probably overkill for what I want it to do. I mean, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to go back up and just do more slurry seal. As you can see, that's 45 cents cheaper. So, so we're going to find an alternative to that, or else just outright delete it. But I want to go ahead and approve it anyway, so we can get the going, and we'll bring that back as a change order. So.
Any questions? Roll call.
Livingston,
Yes.
Ayler,
Yes.
Dorman,
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Meadows,
Yes.
Beach,
Yes.
Hurt.
Yes.
Reports of standing committees, Board of Public Works, Becky.
The minutes are in your packet. I was unable to attend that meeting that evening.
Okay. Any questions for ML? Cemetery Board, Vanessa.
Same thing.
Okay. Police Board, Henry.
I was unaware of this meeting, so I didn't attend it.
Okay.
Aha.
Need to put him on the list, Bob.
Well, he did,
actually left it on his desk up there.
Oh, okay.
and I think I thought,
Communicate a little better.
Okay.
I thought it was an old meeting.
Oh, okay.
I didn't read the dates.
Okay.
We'll do better next time.
We'll get it together.
Okay. Historic Preservation Commission, Susan?
Yeah, that was my first time sitting on that commission, so I'm learning about it. Just a quick highlight, they are working on brochures that outline the opportunities for making Spring Street a historic district. And then there was other discussion about the educational workshops in the Kemper buildings.
Okay. Any questions for Susan? Planning and zoning, Steve?
The zoning application for the 311 acres owned by Arthur Henry Properties LLC was approved and is now forwarded to the City Council for review and approval.
Okay. Thank you very much. Reports of city officials, City Administrator?
I don't have anything.
Mayor, I have nothing. City Councilor?
I have nothing further this evening.
City Clerk, Teresa?
I have nothing.
Miscellaneous. We've had a couple of things that we kind of held back until now. So, Mr. Weaver, you have some kids with you, so maybe we'll put you first about that discussion. He has asked for an extension on this, and you can just be seated there in the front, and if we have any questions for you, then they can ask. Ned?
Is this a simple motion?
I think so. Yeah. Basically amends what motion
Amend
you
your
had
order.
last time, so.
Can we get information from Steve to see how the project's going?
Yes.
You
Good
certainly
idea,
can.
Steve.
I think that'd be appropriate.
Outside wise, he's really done a lot of cleanup. You can finally see the structure. And from looking at it, that is where he has spent the majority of his time. I believe the last few times I have been by me that he is finally on the inside of the structure now. I have went over and looked at an electrical service that was installed. So he has that available now for power for Ameren UE to come and hook up. Other than that, I have done no other inspections other than just a simple drive-by, just trying to keep up with the visual process that I can actually see. So that's really all I can add to it.
Ned?
Would you recommend a 45 or 60-day extension?
I think I would, because I have seen a lot of progress. It's not something that it doesn't look today like it did 3 months ago.
Right.
When we started the process. And like I said, visually from the outside, you can finally see the place. And in order for that to happen, just to even get siding on it, he had to get that cleaned up before he could progress any farther, because he literally could not get to the structure itself. And I have seen where he has started putting some new windows have been installed. There has been some more siding that has been applicated to the house also. So progress is being made. And like I said, just the last couple of times, I'm now starting to see construction material coming out of the house, which is telling me that he is demoing and prepping things to repair on the inside, so.
Great.
Could we give him 30 days and revisit if?
That's up to you guys.
Okay.
That's not my decision.
Steve?
If he's making progress, I'd go and give him the 60, because he's going to need more than what he thinks.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
That's what the weather rabbit.
Mark?
It's more of a Steve question. When you see projects that, and I've been here when we've sat and talked to owners or potential buyers that wanted to buy a house that they didn't really own and want to fix up, what percentage of those that come back and say, how much more time can I have, do we end up coming back to revisit again and then saying, okay, you asked for more time and you still didn't get it? Are they getting it done when they come back and ask for more time?
No.
Or are they just delaying the?
No, because most of the time, I could have told you from the day of the hearing, when they asked for 120 days, it wasn't even going to be anywhere near enough time. I could have told, I mean, but that's not my job to set that. That's theirs to tell you what they think they can get done. But being in the business as long as I have, I mean, I knew there was no way. So most of the time, like I said, it just comes down to a simple fact. They just don't realistically set a goal that can be met. So
okay,
that's the situation with this one.
Wasn't Riverside, didn't we extend that one too?
We did some, yes, I believe so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we have extended them in the past.
That house
So,
looks good.
Yeah, yeah, so,
Well, I think our ultimate goal is to rehab the houses if possible.
sure, sure,
But we don't want it to turn into a perpetual project.
yes.
Steve?
Are you doing this on a part-time basis? You're not doing this full-time, are you?
Oh, I work a full-time job now.
Yeah.
Probably
So it's-
36 hours a week and on the house week.
Yeah, it just takes a long time.
Maybe in the future, hopefully I can break, you know, until like 2 weeks stretch, so I can get it solid.
Dan?
I move we give him a 60-day extension.
60 day, okay. Did everyone hear that? Okay. 60 day. Do I hear a second?
A second.
Okay. Let's do a roll call on that.
Livingston,
yes.
Ayers,
Yes.
Dorman,
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Meadows,
Yes.
Beach,
Yes.
Hurd.
Yes.
Madam Mayor, before Mr. Weaver leaves, can we make sure that we have, Ms. Morgan, your address, telephone number? Do we have all that information?
I don't, I
Okay.
never have because.
We need that because we're going to send all the information to both of you, to Ken and you,
good
so that we have
Good
all of
plan.
that. Because you need to have the original set of documents that shows all of the elements that you need to have done in the next 60 days to meet the dangerous building requirements. Great.
Thank you very much. And then we left some time from the breed-specific legislation. Seemed like there were a couple more of you who had some comments you wanted to make, and I imagine the staff is wanting some direction on which way you want to go on this. So, Kari or Susan? Susan had another comment.
Just a comment. I think this is good, and I'm for it personally. I firmly believe education of the owner of any animal, any breed is important, particularly when you buy a large breed dog. I think it is very important, whether they're adopting that dog, buying the dog, or whatever, to have an opportunity to learn how to socialize and manage the dog. And I would like to see some sort of outlet where we can provide that sort of, maybe not the city, but veterinary clinics, adoption agencies, our animal control shelter, provide information to people who are particularly adopting large breed dogs. I have a large breed dog myself. I know what it takes to manage that dog, and I think we can help people keep from getting into problems if they're just better educated.
Okay. Mark?
My question is more of an administrative aspect. I personally don't believe that a particular breed is inherently more vicious than another. A lot of times they're used for that and trained for that, therefore they get the reputation for that. But aside from that, my question is administrative. If we would adopt an ordinance that said if they're tethered, then, we're going to do something about it. If they aren't kept clean, we're going to do something about it. All of those issues that are in there, how do we police that? I've got a tethered dog right next to Lions Park. But up until now, without the tethered aspect, I guess there's nothing they can do about it. But the question is, it's like speeding on Jefferson Road. What are we going to do about it? To correct the situation. Steve told me earlier that, a neighbor had 2, 3, 4 pit bulldogs. Well, they're not allowed with the current ordinance. So how come they're there? So my real question is, from an administrative aspect, what are we going to do about it? Whether it's breed specific or whether it's vicious, how do we control that, and where's that responsibility lie? Because if we're just going to pass another ordinance that says, okay, this satisfies our need today because, the question came up, how are we going to administer that, and who are we going to hold accountable for that? Is it one visit to the house to say, okay, I'm watching you? Is it, Bobby knows who to watch in town for other activity. So, that's my question is, how are we going to deter those things from happening? Because if we don't do something about it, if we're simply going to pass it and don't do something about it, we haven't done anything. So, and I don't know, that was more rhetorical. I don't know how you answer that question. So
I guess I will make one observation. Believe it or not, it's becoming increasingly difficult for staff to identify if it's really a pit bull.
And I would agree with that.
Because there's been enough time where there's interbreeding and so forth. We've had somebody that had a vet thing that brought in one day that said it's Stafford something or other, and they said, you can't have that. He comes back the next day from another vet, and it's not a pit bull anymore.
Right.
I've had a vet personally call me up and say, I can't tell a difference. If it looks like one, it is one. Well, that doesn't work for us. So that's become increasingly problematic, and Bobby's been exposed to the same phenomenon, I think, with it. So in some sense, the generalized thing is based on action, and that's more objective than trying to, just because it looks like one, well, that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, my mother-in-law's poodle looks pretty vicious
Yeah.
and acts that way.
I thought you were going to say
I'm
your
going to take this
mother-in-law
home and
looked
show
like a
her.
pit bull. Wait a minute.
But in terms of, being proactive outreach, I don't know that we're promising any much of that, I think the group back there has sort of offered, I don't want to speak for them, to play a role in some corrective activities or some corrective resource type things for people to get better training or to get help in being a responsible owner. They've offered that, and maybe that could be developed and put some more ability to implement on that. But just like we don't go door to door collecting dog tags, we're probably not going to say, your dog looks like it might be a candidate. We're probably not going to do that either until they do something.
Go, Susan.
Just a quick question, comment. I would be in favor of seeing fines raised so that it really makes, hopefully, a big impression, the first offense, and make the person understand what it takes to manage that dog. And the second offense, much higher. I think hitting it in the pocketbook might be a good way to try.
Okay.
Well said. Earl and Megan, in reading this and what you've put together, is a good conclusion that we now have a better framework for enforcement than what we had?
I think we have a more objective framework, and it's based upon owner responsibility and the behavior of the dog.
So it's clearer, basically, is what you're saying?
And I think it is more in tune to the actual violations that we have going on and the problems that we're seeing in the community. The definition under a public nuisance, I think, will help us, because we've got owners that are not doing what they need to do to care for their dog, and the rest of us are kind of paying for it kind of thing. So I think that will give the Pam and the police department some more opportunities to work. And again, your education really comes from Pam going and talking when there's been a complaint and saying, this is what you need to do and this is why you need to do it, and doing that explanation. She's got to have time to do that, and sometimes, if she doesn't work 24/7, but the police department kind of is her backup, and I think that they can do that too to a certain degree, but Pam's your main person to do that education. And I think she needs the ordinances behind her to say, if you're not able to get your dog, then, the next time, I'm not going to come back here and just give you a warning. I'm going to give you a citation. And you're going to have to go tell your story to Brad and potentially the judge. And, all those things are in there to kind of escalate it. If the first event is a really bad event, you're not going to get to the second event. But there's a lot of things that can be managed just by educating and going back a couple times and saying, we're done here. So, Becky?
Bobby, did you get to go over this too?
We have to.
Do you think it pushes you a little farther forward, or does it help you?
Well, I have a unique perspective because I was an animal control officer for 7 years in this town, and I never got bit by a pit bull. I never got bit at all, but I wasn't scared of dog.
Right.
I'm really in favor of this because I'm telling you, what we come up with now is you got to do a DNA test to see if it's even a pit bull anymore. Who's going to pay for that and all that? To me, a vicious dog's a vicious dog.
Yeah.
It's easier for, I can tell you, it's easier for me as a police officer to say that's a vicious dog than that's a pit bull.
Yeah.
Because I can't prove that's a pit bull. I can kind of, my probable cause only rises to the level where I can go to Brad and say, listen, this dog chased a kid down the street. That falls under the guidelines. So for us, it's much simpler. This ordinance is much simpler for us to enforce. And I'll tell you, our guys I think they do an excellent job. They got a lot of things going on. But when we have a serious case that comes up, that we had one on 7th Street that just, kind of escalated. We finally just kept giving her tickets and sent her to court, and we finally got it solved. So our guys I think this would be much easier for my officers to enforce than the other ordinance. It's just hard to tell if it's a pit bull.
Great.
And and of all the dogs I chased around this town, the big ones, I never had any trouble with them because I could look at them and scare them. The little dog come up behind you and get you. That's what happens. So you got to be careful of the little ones that come up behind you. But from a practical standpoint, I think this would be much easier for us to interpret, write the ticket, send it to Brad, get it to court, and get it done. So we're for it. Earl and I and Megan and Pam met. We went over all this. And I think it's fine.
Right. Do we have to do anything?
I'm sorry?
Do we have to do anything
Well,
now?
I think the staff just needs some consensus from the council to go ahead and move this forward. We may have to fine tune it more one way or the other, but
Tweak it around a little bit and
so
bring back the first reading.
you want to bring it back and
Yeah, I think we've decided we'll kind of go back through it a little bit. Anybody has any follow-up comments, let us know real soon, and try to make a final draft and bring it back for a first reading. Great job.
Good work.
Question I had in regards to the fees, and Megan, even when you were going through this, you indicated that our fees may be a little low. Has any comparison been done with other communities in
Yes.
regards to?
Yes, Pam did that for me, and I believe, let's see, as far as the daily boarding fee, It looks like it runs anywhere from about $15 to $20 a day. The impoundment fees were probably $10 to $15, maybe even $20 behind what most communities have for the impound fees.
Because I'm also in favor,
Yeah,
I
me
think
too.
we need to beef that
Yeah.
up quite a bit.
Well, I will review the Hancock Amendment research that I've done with Earl to make sure he feels comfortable that we can raise those fees. And frankly, our fees don't necessarily need to be in the ordinance. We can just add it to our administrative schedule of fees, so.
Great.
Okay.
One other comment. Vanessa, I know you were not on the council when the dog folks made their presentation, and they are willing to share with you documentation that they have and photos and that sort of thing if you would like to further research this for yourself. And I have the name of those folks, so, and anyone else who wants to review that. But they brought in pictures, and the most telling one was they had, probably 40 pictures up, and we were to try to pick out which one was the pit bull. Nobody could pick it out. Nobody could pick it out. So that's what Pam's dealing with every day that she goes to work, and Bobby and his folks. So anyway, but if you would like to get with them, I have a phone number for you.
I'm good.
Okay. Any other miscellaneous?
So moved.
Okay, Ned moves that we adjourn. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Adjourn.